Okay, let's get right into it. We're diving into this incredibly abrupt, uh, really violent turning point in the French Revolution.
A huge turning point.
It's the moment the bloodiest part, the Reign of Terror, just comes to a sudden screeching halt.
Hmm.
And this shift has a name, the Thermidorian reaction.
Right, and what you have to understand is that it all started with fear. It began on July 27, 1794. On their calendar, that was the 9th of Thermidor.
Okay,
And this wasn't some big philosophical change. It was pure self-preservation. The politicians in the government, the National Convention, saw Robespierre executing his enemies and then even his allies.
so everyone started thinking, am I next?
Exactly. Every single one of them realized they could be on the next list. That fear is what broke the system.
So the goal for this new group, the Thermidorians, was really simple and immediate. Get rid of the extremists, stop the executions, and get France back to something that felt a little more sane.
Or at least a government where they wouldn't wake up every morning afraid of the guillotine.
Yeah, it was the revolution basically turning on itself.
And to do that, they had to focus on one person, Maximilien Robespierre.
He was the guy, the most powerful man in France, head of the Committee of Public Safety.
He was the engine behind the terror. His power seemed absolute, but, that very fear he used to rule was about to be turned against him.
The actual day, the 9th Thermidor, sounds like pure chaos. Robespierre goes to the National Convention, right? He's got a new list of traitors he's about to name.
A list that very likely included some of the men sitting right there in the hall. He gets up to speak, but he can't.
He's immediately shouted down.
Completely overwhelmed, his colleagues just start screaming at him, accusing him of being a tyrant, of wanting to be a dictator. They refuse to let him even defend himself.
It was a now or never moment for them.
Absolutely. A collective act of survival. They knew if they let him speak, they were probably signing their own death warrants. So Robespierre and his key followers are arrested right there.
But it doesn't end there. He actually escapes.
Right. For a little while, yeah. He and his supporters take refuge at the Hotel de Ville, the city hall. They were hoping to rally the city's radical government to their side.
But the convention moved faster.
Much faster. They declared him an outlaw, which was critical. It meant he could be executed immediately with no trial needed.
And when the soldiers loyal to the convention stormed the city hall to get him back, that's when he gets that infamous injury.
Yes, his jaw is shattered by a pistol shot. We still don't know for sure if he tried to do it himself, if it was an accident, or if one of the soldiers shot him.
But the result was the same.
The great speaker of the revolution was silenced. He was in agony and totally unable to say a word.
And the end came so fast. The very next day, he and 21 of his closest allies, people like Saint-Just, were taken to the guillotine.
Imagine being in that crowd, seeing the architect of the terror executed without being able to utter a single word in his own defense.
It was this huge, symbolic end to the power of the Jacobin Club and the most radical phase of the revolution.
And once Robespierre was gone, the new government, the Thermidorians, they moved immediately to dismantle the whole legal system of the terror.
Starting with a law called the Law of 22 Prairial.
Yes, and we should explain that because it was basically the engine of the guillotine.
So what did it do?
It got rid of due process. It said that if a jury had what they called moral proof, just a strong feeling that someone was an enemy of the state, they could be condemned.
And it stripped the accused of the right to have a lawyer or even call witnesses.
Exactly. So getting rid of that law was the first real sign that things were changing for good.
And the effect must have been immediate.
Oh, huge. Thousands of prisoners who were just waiting to be executed were suddenly released from jail. And the power of the Committee of Public Safety was drastically cut.
That atmosphere of constant fear must have just vanished.
It really did, almost overnight. People started speaking more freely again.
And to make sure the radicals couldn't regroup, the Thermidorians took one more huge step.
They did. In November 1794, they ordered the Jacobin Club in Paris to be shut down. For good.
Which was a massive deal. The Jacobin Club wasn't just some local political group.
No, it was a national network. It was the political machine that organized and ran the terror across the entire country. Shutting it down was like pulling the plug on their whole operation.
So who are these new rulers? The Thermidorians?
They were mostly from the bourgeoisie. Wealthy, middle-class guys, lawyers, businessmen. They'd supported the revolution's goals, but they were terrified of the radical push for extreme equality.
Their main goal was stability.
And for them, stability meant protecting private property.
But their first big economic decision was Well, a total catastrophe.
It was. They got rid of the price controls on essential goods like bread and fuel. It was called the maximum.
They believed in a free market,
Yeah, they thought the economy would just sort itself out.
but it didn't.
Not even close. You got a massive hyperinflation almost instantly. The cost of living just exploded. And the revolutionary money, the assignat, was already almost worthless because they had printed so much of it.
So you have this really stark contrast. The wealthy are throwing parties, celebrating, while the working class in Paris is literally starving.
hmm And that created this deep, bitter anger toward the new government. It showed that you can't have political stability without economic stability.
This friction then leads to another wave of violence, the White Terror.
Right, but this was different. This wasn't the government killing people. This was revenge.
So people who had suffered under Robespierre were now hunting down and attacking former Jacobins.
Exactly. It was often carried out by gangs, sometimes with quiet support from royalists who wanted the king back. It was messy, decentralized mob violence.
And while all this is happening, social life is just transforming.
It's a complete 180 from the strict moral lifestyle Robespierre had demanded.
And the symbol of this were the Muscadins, right? The gilded youth.
Yes, these were the wealthy sons of the new elite. They wore these incredibly extravagant clothes, used cologne, and carried these heavy walking sticks
Which they used as weapons.
to beat up anyone they thought was a Jacobin supporter on the street. It was a cultural statement.
Theaters and grand parties reopened. Everything was about luxury and excess, a total rejection of the radical phase.
And to try and make this new order permanent, the Thermidorians drafted a new constitution in 1795, the Constitution of the Year 3.
And this document was basically designed to prevent another Robespierre.
It's a total overcorrection. They make the government intentionally complex and slow. You get a two-house legislature to make sure every law is debated to death.
They wanted gridlock more than they feared tyranny.
Pretty much. And the executive power. They gave it to 5 men, called the directors. The whole point was to make the executive branch weak, so no one person could ever get too powerful.
But there was a catch to this new system. A big one.
A very big one. They changed who could vote. They got rid of the universal male suffrage of the radical period.
So now, only men who owned property or paid a certain amount in taxes could vote.
Exactly. They were terrified of the poor, the sans-culottes, who they saw as the base of support for the terror. So they just took political power away from them and gave it to the wealthy elite.
And despite all these designs, the new government was incredibly unstable from the start.
Constantly walking a tightrope. They were facing threats from the radical left and poor workers who tried to start an uprising in May 1795.
Which the army crushed.
And they faced threats from the royalist right.
Which brings up a pretty important point. For a government designed to stop a dictatorship, it needed the army to survive constantly.
And we see that perfectly in October 1795. There's a huge royalist revolt in Paris trying to bring back the monarchy. The government is helpless.
And this is the moment a certain young, ambitious officer steps into the spotlight.
Napoleon Bonaparte. He's the one who defends the government. He famously uses a whiff of grape shot to clear the rebels off the streets.
So his success really highlights the fatal flaw in the whole system.
It does. The government was politically weak, it failed to fix the economy, and it was completely dependent on the military to exist.
So the Thermidorian reaction did end the state-sponsored killings, which was a huge achievement. But it created this deliberately weak system.
An unstable system. And that instability, which came from their fear of a strong leader, created a power vacuum.
A vacuum that was perfectly suited for a military strongman like Napoleon to step into.
Exactly. By trying so hard to prevent another Robespierre, they ended up paving the way for the very thing they feared, a dictator who would end the republic entirely.
It's a huge paradox. They traded the political rights of the poor for what they thought would be stability.
But the machine they built was just destined to fail.
So here's a thought to take with you. In politics, when you overcorrect against one danger like creating a government that's too weak to ever become a tyranny, do you just make yourself vulnerable to a totally different and maybe even greater threat? See you next time.